we're going to be discussing my game against Rob Jr., a very good friend of mine and just a very strong opponent as well. He came in second in the cashing tournament that I finished fifth in, so no doubt I had my hands full here. This time around, we're playing in the EMBA League. I brought you guys my week 1 game against Blitz for that, and if you want to check this out, then I'd also recommend checking that out. It's on my channel in the Draft League playlist. I have a lot of Draft League content in there, going all the way back to Cash Gang with all of my battles for that. But yeah, now we're week 2 against Rob Jr., so these are both of our teams. What we're going to do here is we're going to go through both the teams, and then we're going to hop over to the replay and we're going to go through the battle. Both of us won our week 1 battles, so we're both going in 1-0. So if I drop this game, then I'm still in an okay spot. I'm 1-1, so I could definitely make playoffs regardless. It's still the start of the season, but if I win, then I'm in an even better spot. I might even be in one of the first spots in the league, so that'd be great. But I know Rob has a leg up in experience, and he also had a really strong start to his draft with Mega Mawile round 1. He followed that up with Landorus T, Como O, Ryu Nicholas, Volcarona, Rotom Mo, Lycanroc, Dusk, Vaporeon, Skuntank, and Regice. On the other hand, as you guys may know, my team is Gliscor, Victini, Toxapex, Sylveon, Mega Aerodactyl, Metagross, Tyranitar, Cofagrigus, Rotom Fan, and Grotle. So right off the bat, for those of you who don't know, Rob drafted a team very similar to my team in the Cashing tournament. It was an 8-man tour, but he had Gliscor. I picked Victini over Hydreigon, which was his round 2-ish pick. Then he had Toxapex, he had Mega Aerodactyl, he had Metagross, and he had Cofagrigus. He also had a Togetic on board. But since this is 11-man, I got a lot more. I only picked 10 mons as well, so I was able to ration it well. So I also got Sylveon and Tyranitar on top of this, and Rotom Fan and Grotle. So that was really cool to kind of expand my horizons. But overall, I kind of built off a base, a core, if you will, that he previously established. I thought that was really interesting. On top of that, looking at the teams, he definitely has some very threatening Pokemon to me. First and foremost, Mega Mawile, I have no counters to. Cofagrigus and Physically Defensive Metagross can function as soft checks at best. Cofagrigus in particular, even though it can get to a KO'd, especially with a knockoff. I do have the ability Mummy, so I could bring that potentially, but ultimately I elected not to. But digging a bit deeper into his team, on top of Mega Mawile, any Swords Dance, Landorus T, I could only pretty much check with Gliscor, so I knew right off the bat I'd have to bring that. And I also knew Como was going to be mad threatening. The thing is that the Pokemon that can check Como, such as Toxapex and Sylveon, enable Mega Mawile really nicely. And this built-in synergy in his team is just a very threatening dynamic. So I knew right off the bat I probably couldn't bring both Toxapex and Sylveon, as I didn't want to be too passive. But I knew I wanted to bring one of Toxapex and Mega Aerodactyl, if not both, to keep Volcarona in check. On top of that, you see these Pokemon like Gliscor, Toxapex, Sylveon, Mega Aerodactyl. They tend to struggle against physically bulky sweepers like Ryu Nicholas, especially since it's Magic Guard, so I knew that bringing Tyranitar and Victini could also be good as their threats to that. Finally, last Pokemon on this team that I could potentially face Rotom Mo, Lycanroc, Dust, Vaporeon, Skuntank, and Regice. I knew that there was a chance that he'd bring pretty much all of these besides Skuntank. I thought right off the bat that he wouldn't bring Volcarona though, as I do have Mega Aerodactyl and Toxapex, so while I'd prepare a little bit for it, I'd focus more on other Pokemon. I kind of thought Lycanroc Dusk would be a great bring by him because while it is threatened off by Ball Punch from Metagross, it's really able to chew apart the remainder of my team at +2. It threatens everything. The thing is that getting a Swords Dance is virtually impossible, so I thought Rotom Mo would also be a decent alternative to that. Nasty Plot, Leaf Storm, and either Volt Switch or Thunderbolt or Discharge is just mad threatening against my team once Victini takes chip, and Victini tends to take chip a lot early in the game. +2 Electric Move is able to take out Toxapex, Mega Aerodactyl, and do a lot to Metagross. +2 Leaf Storm is able to kill Gliscor potentially, depending on my spread and his spread, and Tyranitar. And of course, Rotom Fan and Cofagrigus weren't very good against it, and I have no reason to bring Grotle in this matchup. I also knew he'd bring Vaporeon just because it does really well against Mega Aerodactyl and Victini and Metagross, so that made sense to me. But I also knew that there are ways to exploit that. I didn't think he'd bring Regice, just because it's not great against Victini, Tyranitar, Metagross, Sylveon. But I knew that there was a chance if he was going to bring it, it'd be an offensive variant. It'd be with lures to Sylveon, like an offensive Landorus T or an Iron Tail Como O, or even an Iron Head Mega Mawile. If not, then something toxic on Vaporeon to at least force Seal Bells to force returns. So I thought there was a chance he'd bring Regice, but it's more of an outside chance. So going through my team, right off the bat, I knew that I wanted to use Gliscor for sure, of course. It was my first overall pick. It's a ground immune for Landorus T. It's able to tank any non-ice punch from Mega Mawile, and also soft check some combined Ryu Nicholas sets. In addition to this, it can tank any one hit from Lycanroc Dusk, and it actually is able to do really well against Skuntank, if you were to bring it. So, didn't want to do that, and I also knew I wanted Stealth Rock on either Metagross or Tyranitar, so what I decided to do was run Swords Dance, Earthquake. I ran Facade because it has more mid-ground potential, but Ice Fang is better against Landorus T than Facade, I admit, but Facade hits Rotom-Mow harder, and on top of that, say you think they might go Landorus T or Rotom-Mow, but they might also just stay in with Nicholas, or go Como-O as a mid-ground, for example. Facade does more than that. In fact, it does just less than Earthquake, so therefore Swords Dance Facade was a play. However, I wanted to run a variant of this that was able to be offensively threatening, as I figured Ice Punch Mega Mawile would make a lot of sense. Because of that, I elected to run Adamant with attack invested to always kill a max HP Mawile at +1. So say I get a Swords Dance and Intimidate happens with Stealth Rock. So that was really crucial. On top of that, it also means that at +2, I should be able to 2-KO a physically defensive Vaporeon or a physically defensive Nicholas. And I should be able to do a lot of things like offensive Landorus T with a +1 Facade as well. And Hidden Power Ice does not exist in this format or this generation, so that would also be beneficial for me. So right off the bat, I had my Gliscor set. I didn't run a ton of speed. I just ran a little creep in case he ran a max special attack, max speed, modest Vaporeon, or speed crept a little bit on Rotom-Mow for 0 speed Gliscor. Following that up, I wanted to run a Victini that was a bit threatening, pretty threatening to this team, but I also had a lure concept in the back to try and take advantage of Vaporeon and Reuniclus. So instead of going with physical V-Crate, I elected to go special, as that would do more damage to things like Como-O, Landorus T, and Mega Mawile, while also still remaining pressurable force on other things. So I ran Blue Flare, Psychic, Will-O-Wisp, and U-Turn with modest nature and then max speed, because that outruns a max plus Rotom-Mow and Como-O still. I didn't think he'd run a fast Landorus T unless he ran Scarf, and I didn't think he'd run Scarf unless he was running a Stealth Rock Como-O. So I thought if he's running Stealth Rock Como-O, then I actually really am not threatened by that, because I've got Gliscor, Sylveon, etc. So I figured that if it would be Scarf Landorus, then I actually would have a much better matchup, because that can't even pressure Gliscor either. So that would make the SD Gliscor matchup a lot better. So it's something I was willing to trade off, saying, okay, if he's running a Scarf Landorus T that's quicker than Victini, that's fine with me. I'm not going to bother. It also let me say, okay, if he's doing that, I'm fine running Victini to lead, and if he wants to pick me off with Earthquake turn 1, I could use that to my advantage to get Toxic Orb up, get a Swords Dance up, and I wasn't throwing Regice, so I was pretty sure that'd be fine with me. So yeah, I ran that sort of Victini. Toxapex, I wanted to run something that would really not make Reuniclus too passive, but I also wanted to run it still because I wanted to pressure Volcarona. So I ended up running Gastro Acid, which is really cool, as not only does it negate Magic Guard, but also negates Huge Power on Mega Mawile, which could be really cool. In addition to that, it does negate Tough Claws on Lycanroc Dusk, as I wasn't running Scald, which we'll get into later, but I didn't think that would come into play as likely. But I ran Toxic plus Gastro Acid with Scald and Recover. No, with Haze and Recover as well. Didn't run any attacks, but Haze is really great. I also ran Shuka Berry because I was scared of Landorus T, Earthquake from Como-O, and potentially Drill Run from Lycanroc Dusk, because that makes more sense against my team than Psychic Fang, and you also have Metagross and Tyranitar. So yeah, it all made sense to me. Sylveon was a Pokemon I initially was planning on running, but not a defensive set. I wanted to run more offensively. But as I said before, I didn't want to let Mega Mawile get into safely, and even Specs Mystical Fire doesn't always kill Mega Mawile, especially if it has bulk invested. And looking at his team, he doesn't really have any need to run speed. It's really only Sylveon and potentially Metagross, but you'd have to run so much speed down with Metagross that I figured you'd just run bulkier with Sucker Punch for that. So, all things considered, I elected to bypass my Sylveon for the second week in a row, which is kind of funny, as in 8-Mon in the Cash Chain Draft, I actually used it almost every time, if not every time. Sylveon was like the glue of my team, but perhaps in 12-Mon, when you have more Pokemon to prep for and take advantage of it, it's not actually as effective. So, in hindsight, I'm actually kind of regretting drafting Sylveon when I did, but I ended up getting other Pokemon I wanted there, Mega Aerodactyl in the next round anyway, so that worked out plenty well. So let's get on to Mega Aerodactyl. Initially, Mega Aerodactyl was the Pokemon that I wasn't going to use for Sylveon, but the more and more I thought of it, seeing as I had later on my team a couple lures to the Vaporeon, I knew running that Mega Aerodactyl would be fine. Even if Landorus T could take an Ice Fang, Mega Mawile could take an Earthquake, Como and Reuniclus don't get killed in one shot, and Vaporeon can potentially wall it. It was just too good, because with Chip later on in the games, it's really good. So I wanted to run Stone Edge, Ice Fang, and Thunder Fang without Earthquake on this team, because I just thought Mega Mawile would be chipped early on in the game. Ice Fang's too important for Landorus T and Como-O. I didn't want to run Aerial Ace either, as it didn't hit anything else. Ice Fang also hits Rotom-Mow if he runs that. And Stone Edge is crucial, as you want to do as much damage as you can to Volcarona, Reuniclus, and I guess Vaporeon by Thunder Fang. But yeah. Oh yeah, and Stone Edge also hits Regice if he brings it, so that's cool. Next up was the main trickery on my team, pun intended. I ran Trick plus Toxic Orb on my Metagross. I was kind of just predicting him to use Vaporeon or Landorus T to pivot into that. I know it could clash with my Will-O-Wisp onto Victini, but all things considered, it would be worthwhile just to catch the Vaporeon or even the Volcarona. Alternatively, if it catches Reuniclus with Gastro Acid, that's actually fine as well. And also, with physical defense and Bullet Punch, it was a good pivot into Lycanroc Dusk. It wasn't a counter, but it was a check. Same goes for Mega Mole, and I could live any one Adamant hit from Landorus T as well. I also made this my Stealth Rocker, so I ran Stealth Rock, Meteor Mash, Bullet Punch, and Trick. I didn't really feel a need for like a Rock move for Volcarona or an Ice move for Landorus T and Komodo, just because Meteor Mash just didn't play hard as well. And I feel that it wasn't going to come into play as it didn't get chipped earlier on in the game anyway. Tyranitar was the last Pokemon to use, but I just want to say I was considering using Cofagrigus just because he wasn't going to bring Skuntank, which is the main Ghost Resist. But it felt like those teams with Cofagrigus kind of favored a longer game, and his team had so much offensive pressure with Reuniclus, the potential Life Orb, Como potentially Dragon Dance or Swords Dance. Landorus T has a whole myriad of offensive possibilities, and of course Mega Mawile being arguably the most threatening Pokemon in the format, that I ultimately elected to go with a less passive option and more geared towards checking Reuniclus defensively and potentially Volcarona defensively with a Chople Berry, Toxic for Vaporeon and Landorus T and Como, Crunch, Earthquake for Mega Mawile, and Roar variant of Tyranitar. A lot of attack and some speed, and then I pumped the rest. I ran defense, always love Landorus T, and just some speed otherwise in HP. So yeah, that was the team I ran. As for his team, I was really kind of going into it before, but I kind of expected him to run no Volcarona, so that would open up for Rotom, Mo, Lycanroc Duskord, even potentially Regice, and Vaporeon seemed like a staple on his team, alongside Mega Mawile, Landorus T, and Como. So those are Pokemon I was expecting. As for sets, nothing too out of the ordinary. I kind of expected a more threatening Como with the Stealth Rock Landorus T. That's kind of why I was sure he wouldn't be Scarf, but if he was Scarf, then I thought it might be Rocks Como. So, or even dropping Rocks. So I was kind of like, okay, no big deal. He ended up running Scarf Rocks, which really kind of caught me off guard set-wise. But yeah, as for threats, I knew the biggest threat to my team was a Life Orb, Reuniclus, or just Mega Mawile straight up. So I knew I had to play well against those. And on top of that, Dragon Dance Como or Swords Dance Como could be a major threat to me. I only had one thing to outrun it. Two things to outrun it, and everything was threatened to get to a KO, even Pex after Shuka's break-in, so I had to be careful there. So let's go on into the game. I'm going to pause for a second, and we're going to get to that right now. Okay, guys, we're back. So this is the team preview right off the bat here. Sorry about that. He elected not to bring Lycanroc Dusk or Rotom, and instead elected to bring the Regice, but the rest was pretty much as I anticipated. No Volcarona, indeed. And of course, he brought the big four rather, because he needs to bring Vaporeon for this game. Vaporeon, Landorus T, Como, and Mega Mawile. And Reuniclus, big five, really. Okay. I guess this whole team is just big at this point. What do you do? But yeah, am I making a fool of myself aside? I knew I had my work cut out for me here. It was a very strong opponent, but I also knew that I had a nice plan here. So right off the bat, I knew I wanted to lead Victini. I figured worst case scenario, we can lead Landorus T, because if he leaves Vaporeon, I could just beat him out. But if he leaves Landorus T, there's a chance it's Scarf, and that's a big threat to me. But I, again, was willing to accept that, because if it's Scarf, that means it's probably going to be Rocks Como, and that would make the matchup a lot easier for me if it's not a threatening variant of it. Because that would ease pressure and let me focus more on Reuniclus. And I don't mind Rocks beating up, because I've got Boots onto Victini. Everything else doesn't really mind Rocks a ton besides Arrow, and Arrow has Roost even, so yeah. So what I want to do is I want to lead and I want to Wisp, hoping he doesn't go Vaporeon, predicting like a Specs Glaciate or something. So if I Wisp that, that's great, and then I could just go out to my Metagross and potentially get off a Trick into that Vaporeon. So that's the early game plan. As for what I need, Swords Dance Gliscor doesn't look as good here because he's got the Regice, but if I get Rocks up and it's not Heavy Duty Boots, then a +2 Earthquake should be able to kill it if it's an offensive variant, which I kind of am anticipating. Just because I'm adamant, and also +2 Earthquake can take advantage of Tricked Vaporeon and Reuniclus, so I feel like that is still a possible condition, but him bringing Regice actually was a really good call on his end, and something I didn't really anticipate or prepare a ton for. That also means I probably have to preserve one of my Tyranitar and Metagross for that Regice in the later on portion of the game. Although Mega Aerodactyl could potentially take it out with the Stone Edge, but if it's physically defensive, then actually that's really sucky for me in the late game, because Aerodactyl can kill it in one, and a +2 Gliscor couldn't kill it with the Rocks. Again, especially with Heavy Duty Boots, then it's even harder. So I know that it's probably going to be an uphill climb, but I definitely can do it. I want to try and get that trick off on Vaporeon as early as I can, and then open up the game for Aerodactyl as well. So let's see what I can do here. I lead with Victini, as I say, and he leads Landorus T, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for the Wisp play. I don't think he's going to be quicker, but he is quicker. And he goes for Rock, so I'm like, wait, what? Is this like a max speed Landorus T, max plus? And I'm looking at my team, I'm like, okay, the only thing that really outruns is maybe Gliscor, but if you look at Gliscor, max is 317, so much quicker than that. So I'm thinking he's got to be Scarf, Rock, Slender's T, and that kind of threw a wrench in my plans right off the bat. Thankfully, he didn't go for an attack and kill me in one hit, as it would have been a roll to kill in all likelihood. I do have some bulk, but not a ton. Again, depending on his attack investment, it would have been a roll. Because now it's fine. I got the Wisp off, and I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure he's Scarf, so I can just U-turn out. But I'm like, wow, okay. So that means not only does he get rocks up with this, but he still does it with Como. So I've got to pressure on as much as I can. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to U-turn expecting him to go to Como or get a Vaporeon. And right off the bat, either of them I'm going to go to Metagross, and I'm just going to trick. Because I know for a fact he's probably not going to switch either of them, and getting that Toxic Orb switch is great. So I get the U-turn up here, and despite myself being -1, I'm going to do a Flume Chip in the Vaporeon, which is enough to know, since he's only did 60%, that he's physically defensive and near max defense. And he sees I'm not leftovers, he's like, okay, I gotta play in the defense, so probably going to Wish here, or Squall to get burn off on it. But he Heal Bells to get that burn off Landorus T, and that's great, because I get that trick off immediately. And that burn is stuck on him despite the Heal Bell. And that's great, because I can get my Stealth Rock up. Now he brings in Reuniclus, and I'm very threatened. So I go out to my Gliscor here, and he goes for a Shadow Ball, and that damage reveals that he either is modest with special attack investment or Life Orb. So I roost off, because it wasn't max special attack Life Orb, and that reveals that he has some special attack with modest but not max. I roost again just to get a further idea of the damage roll, because I'm still trying to fill it out, but he does more here. I think I might roost one more time just to get a further feel. No, I actually go Victini here, and he goes for Psychic. It does 28, so yeah, now I've got a great idea of what his spread is. I go for U-turn early to 24, so I'm like, okay, so he's like physically defensive, not especially defensive. I predict him just go for a Shadow Ball, and I go to my Tyranitar here, and that's great. I'm going to pause it now. He does 10%, so I know he's got modest and significant special attack investment. He actually showed me the team after. But I know right here that Crunch from my Adamant Tyranitar is going to do at least 65 to 70%. It has a chance to take him out if those were like minerals with U-turn, and I get a max roll with Crunch. But I wasn't going to bank on that, but I figured he'd be scared out here because I'm always going to out-damage Crunch. And because of that, I'm like, okay, what can he switch into? I'm thinking that he doesn't want to risk Landorus T a ton, because it's definitely not leftovers. It's more of an offensive Scarf set. So I think that he's probably going to go to Mawile, knowing that he could live a Crunch into Earthquake, or into Como in all likelihood, because Como doesn't use health a ton, especially with Wish Vaporeon in the back. At least you're not going to be Wish past yourself. And seeing as Vaporeon tends to lure in things like Toxapex and Metagross, you could live a Meteor Mash. So I think that you go Como here. So because of that, I double to Victini. However, he makes a really nice mid-ground play, and he goes for the Recover. And yeah, he did get the special defense drop, which made me scared of dying to a single Focus Blast or even a boosted Grass Knot with max damage, but I didn't think that was super likely, even then it would have been a roll because Chapel Berry or Grass Knot's just only 2 times super effective. So it didn't really come into play, but I went to Victini here, and he actually predicted that, or just said, okay, I'm fine going for the mid-ground Recover. So now I'm just going to fire up a Blue Fairy. I knew he'd do a little over half here. I was like, okay, I can't risk bringing the Tyrant on a Focus Blast, so I'm just going to spam this. I don't really need Victini here. He goes for a Shadow Ball, takes me out, and I get a burn, which I guess is cool if I ever Gas Acid it. Now I bring the Tyrant. He is going to double out, I assume, but he actually goes Mawile instead of the Como, so I can't heal up the Gliscor, which I doubled into. Really good play by him, nice mid-ground there. He's keeping the pressure, and this is kind of my main fear in this game. Thankfully for me, he goes for Iron Head, which I tank with ease with his Metagross, and I have Leftovers recovery as well. Now he goes Sucker, as I simply go for Meteor Mash, and only does 35, so that means he's got max HP probably, which is not great for me. I go Ball Punch here, and I crit. I was predicting the Sucker Punch. That crit actually helped me a little bit as it puts him in Meteor Mash range, but I go for Ball Punch, predicting Sucker. He goes for Thunder Punch again to chip me down. Thankfully, Leftovers leave me out of Stealth Rock range, and the crit before puts him in Ball Punch range. He switches out, trying to preserve that, knowing he could potentially take advantage of Pex or get a Sucker Punch off later on in the game. 19% Landorus with Ball Punch isn't great, but I feel like at this health right now that I'm at, U-turn might be a roll. On top of that, I think he might be going for something like Knockoff or Earthquake to A, try to kill this, B, try to catch a mid-ground Pex, or Knockoff just to kill this and also threaten Aerodactyl. So I go Gliscor here, but unfortunately he calls it and goes U-turn, which is really bad for me, as now he's got momentum, and he brings in his Como, and I've got to be scared of the possibility of an Ice Punch, or even like a special set. So I go to Pex, and my worst nightmare happens. He goes for Dragon Dance. So yeah, he had the rocks on something else, plus the Como is offensive, which was kind of a combination I was really scared of, and he had it. So it's just really good prep by Robjr, just showing how great he is at this format. And thankfully I'm Shuka Berry, so I'm able to get a Toxic off, and not all is lost. Does a ton though, so it means he's probably adamant giving that damage, which is just overwhelming. So right here, I'm actually going to go to Tyranitar here, predicting him to go for an Ice Punch without wanting to lose my packs, because I figured he'd predict Gliscor here and not go with Earthquake. I guess Close Combat was another possibility, but yeah, I didn't want to risk Pex on an Earthquake, so I figured if I got a 5 something, this is it. But this also lives the Ice Punch, so that worked out because I also get Sand damage on him because he's not Overcoat. which is good. And then he takes me out. So all of it, Sand, Life Orb, and Poison damage leaves him in Bullet Punch range from Metagross, so I can go to that. And I can take him out with the Bullet Punch. I got a crit there, but unless a very bizarre spread, I don't think that mattered. Sorry if it did, though. I admit. I do have a little attack investment, but not a ton. He goes Landorus Scene. It turns out that after Stealth Rock and Zapdos, the game showed that U-turn did kill after all. So my mental calc wasn't great. I didn't actually calc that U-turn in particular just because I was busy focusing on other calcs. But he's now in a 5-3 position, so it looks like I'm behind. He goes Mawa. I know I need to make plays. I can't go to the Whiscore because I risk him being Ice Punched last, which I think he was. So out of here, I go for Roost from predicting the Sucker because I know it's a roll to a little over half. He's max Adamant. So I get that right, and now I can just go for a Thunder Fang to take him out. And that leaves me over half health if need be, which is cool. He goes Vaporeon, and I know I could Roost this off. I actually go, here, I go Pex here. I should have Roosted. Roost was my play. I figured he'd go Renicholas, but I'm like, okay. If he goes Renicholas, I can still Gas Jurassic it, and then like put on a little timer with Burn, and potentially heal off, but let's go and get a Swords Dance off and win the game if it's not Boots, just the defensive Regice. But, he predicts it and goes Renicholas here, and that like forced the kill pretty much. So it's just a really good play, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to probably crit the Vaporeon at the end of the game, or hopefully it's not Boots. I get the kill here, given this likely spread that didn't matter, but if it did, then it was like 1 in 16 chance with him living anyway. So yeah, I didn't really mind the crit. That was good for me. I hit. And now I know I live a couple of goals with Roosts. So what I could do here is I could Roost again, and then I could go for the Thunder Fang crit. I'm going to stop right here. So yeah, there are a couple plays here. I could Roost one more time. Hope he gets absolute min damage, which is like 54. I think it's like 55 or 54 to 63. Or I could Roost again, let it die, and then go Gliscor. Hopefully he stays in and just scalds till he dies, and I can eventually get the Swords Dance off as it dies, as long as there's 2 or 3 more turns left, so I can potentially Roost out of that damage range. So I do have a lot of special defense investment. And then Swords Dance on the last turn. Hopefully live that Scald again, hopefully. I don't know. I hope he chokes and like Heal Bells himself. And then get a Swords Dance up and hope it's not Boots Regice. Or I could go for the crit Thunder Fang, as now it's in crit range. And then, seeing as he's Scarf Landorus, I couldn't actually win anyway. But if he wasn't Scarf, I could have won. I didn't know he was Scarf at this point, 100%. He could have just been Max Speed Plus with Stealth Rock, which was also just looming in my head. Excuse me. I could have done that, went for the crit. Going for the crit was a better play ultimately because I just had no chance of realistically winning with Gliscor. I would have had to choke multiple times and be a dumb Regice set. But I ended up going for the latter, which is a choke, because it's the difference between a 2-0 and a 3-0. I guess differential does kind of count for tiebreak in this league. So yeah, I go for the Roost here. And he just goes hard Regice. As you see, it's like only does 29%, and he is Boots. So not only was he physically defensive, but he was Boots. There was no way plus 2 Gliscor could have taken it out. So yeah, I do fall Robjr here. Really well played game by my friend Robjr. I definitely enjoyed this despite him coming out on top. I hope you guys did as well. This is Finch. I'm going to try and bring a draft league game every week for the league. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Peace, guys.